Welcome, everyone. Yeah, so I'm very happy to be hosting this panel, and I'm also very happy to have 5 great panelists here. So we already saw Yasemin and Feryal earlier in the keynote talk, and we will be seeing them again on this panel. But we will also be seeing 3 other people. So we'll see Rula, Marc, and Federica. And so the idea that I have for this panel is that we kind of like split the hour that we have in more or less like 2 parts. So in the first part, we do maybe, or I ask everyone kind of like an introductory question about maybe their journey. But I want to open up in the second part to all of you, so you can also ask some questions, because you probably have much better questions than I do. And so we want to make this a little bit more interactive. So please, if you have questions, post them in a Slack, not Slack, a chat, and then we're going to get to those questions soon. Yeah. So yes, very happy to be here, and I would also welcome the panelists. So I'd like to start and maybe with an initial question to Rula. So Rula has done an economics undergraduate degree, was then working for a tech consultancy, and then moved back to university to do an MSc degree in machine learning here at UCL, where she was focusing on political bias in text. And then she got an EU grant to commercialize her thesis, and then she worked on building a media intelligence platform. And then she's now working on combating disinformation during the US election, and for her own startup, but also for other tech platforms. So, Rula, you've been working on statistics and society for a few years now. What got you excited about this kind of area?
Oops. Yes, thanks for that, Marc. Thanks for the introduction. So I think when I think about it, I've always been a bit of a nerd at school. So for example, when my dad got me our first computer, the first thing I did was take it apart to see if it was really made of chips. But I was also really interested, like Feryal, in history, literature, and that kind of stuff. But what I realized was I thought about things a little bit differently than how they were traditionally taught at school. So for me, history was a set of systems and processes. And when I deconstructed the way I thought about things, it was a very mathematical, logical way of thinking through things. And so I always would just imagine things like, you know, if we could only change one event in history, how does it change an entire kind of an entire outcome? So it's kind of like modeling things as though they were like a simulation in my mind. And I obviously thought that was not the right way to think about things until I read a book called Butterfly Economics by Paul Ormerod. And what he was trying to do was kind of model social phenomena using kind of chaos theory and stuff like that. And basically, you could explain kind of the pivotal moments in like this timeline of this social phenomena. So that's when I was kind of like, okay, well, you know, the best thing for me to study is something like economics. So that's what I did. And I thought this was kind of a crossroads between social sciences and maths or stats. But basically it was really weird because everybody wanted to go into banking, and I didn't really understand that because we were doing such cool stuff in economics. For example, in one of my political economics classes, we used game theory to model kind of how the separation of powers in the US yielded optimal social results. And, you know, after the Glorious Revolution in the UK, why the suffrage was given to the entire population rather than just the elites. So it's things like that kind of just got me really excited. And like Feryal said, it was just this kind of curiosity to sort of understand, you know, how things worked, but also, you know, how people were motivated, how the mind how the mind worked and how that contributes to that, to emotions and all the rest of it. So yeah, I guess I joined UCL to do machine learning because it seemed to be that crossroads of everything that I seemed to be interested in, although there was a little bit less focus on social sciences, I have to say. And but whatever, I just decided to do my own thing with that. And yeah, so here I am, I guess, working on trying to stop disinformation from interfering in the US election. So we're working with a US swing state to do that.
Oh, thank you. Good luck with that. I think that's in everyone's interest. So I found it quite interesting. You said, yeah, when you were a small child, you were like a nerd. You took your first computer apart. So I was wondering, because there seems to be kind of like not a typical girl's, I don't know, preference at maybe when you were young as well. And I was wondering, so it sounds like what I expect is that you often had to go through a lot of hoops all by yourself. And I was wondering whether you could explain a little bit what kind of like the main challenges that you faced as a girl or as a teenager, maybe unlike your male friends.
Yeah. So I went to a girls' school, so it was pretty challenging. So yeah, like I was really interested in tech from the age of like, I don't know, I mean, my dad got me my first computer at 10, so that's when I took it apart. And you know, I was really interested in, I think I've told you this story, but like I tried to build the girls' version of eBay because I didn't like how eBay looked, and I didn't feel that it appealed to women, although apparently I'm really wrong, or maybe I'm not, because there are actually all much more popular alternatives to eBay, like Depop and stuff like that. So what I did was I tried to build this like really cool front end of a website that was just meant to replace eBay. Obviously I wasn't serious about replacing eBay. It's just a fun project. And I wanted to put a payments gateway into the back end, and I didn't know how to do that. And in class, we kind of learned how to do HTML. So that's kind of, I just knew a bit of HTML. And then I went to one of my teachers and I was like, can you help me out build this payment gateway? And he was like, no, focus on your studies. Stop focusing on like these things. They're silly. They're not going to kind of move you forwards in life. And so kind of that was like my first shutdown. And again, like I said, I went to a girls' school, so there was just like real focus on things like kind of traditional girly subjects, I suppose, like literature, arts. I think in my physics A-level class there were like three guys. So it was quite, I guess it was quite challenging. It was this constant trying to sort of pivot myself back to what I was really interested in, and it was quite risky because, or in my mind, it seemed quite risky. And like I felt like along the way I lacked the confidence to do that because I wasn't sure, well, if I did this, what would be out there for me? And I think really it was until I went to UCL and did machine learning that I was like, actually, this is my path and it's okay to do this. And, you know, you do have to deal with annoying guys. And yeah. So I guess that was it. But I was also, I should say that I was much older in that deciding to embark on this rather than kind of at 18 or whatever.
Cool. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I think the lack of confidence is quite a big challenge for many people. So that is, and I guess people need support to kind of like push through this and then get to the point where everyone is happy. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. I would like to go to our next panelist, so Marzieh. Marzieh did her undergraduate in computer science in Iran and then came to do a master's degree in advanced software engineering at King's College here in London. She worked then for a few years as a software engineer in the financial industry in London. So I see some parallels here as well with others. Then Marzieh came also to UCL to do a PhD in natural language processing, and then worked in a startup called Bloomsbury AI, which got acqui-hired by Facebook. And now she is working in the Facebook AI applied research team on automatically detecting misinformation. Again, I see some parallels here. So Mazie, welcome to the panel.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much for having me in the panel.
So you've had a very interesting journey through many institutions. And I was wondering, what message do you have for a girl who's excited about computer science and AI if she wants to follow your path?
Well, I would say go for it. And I want to say that AI is cool. Where I grew up in Iran, being an engineer was very cool. So I had no doubt that I want to be an engineer because I was good at math. And sometimes I feel here that people think science is nerdy and it's not cool, but I must say that AI is very cool. And also AI is going to be present in all aspects of our lives in the future. So it's great to be, as women, to be involved and to be able to shape that future. And the good thing about the field of AI right now is that there is lots of effort for inclusion and diversity. Compared to a few years ago that I did my PhD in UCL, I see many more women in AI already. And I do believe that the future of AI should be shaped by both women and men.
Thank you. So what you told me and what also Rula told me earlier is that you both had the confidence to go for what you want. And maybe something, maybe the system didn't quite work in your favor, but you went for it and you, you kind of like got to the place where you are right now. But I was wondering what kind of like support you think would be good in terms of like, or especially from men, to support women who don't have that confidence that you have, and Rula also.
Yes, so one thing in general, maybe not just from men, is that it's good for little girls and for kids in general to have female role models in AI. I remember when I was a software engineer in finance industry, I couldn't see any women in the top roles as managers, or generally in software engineering, anybody above age 40, it was very rare. And I always wondered what would happen to me when I get a bit older, or how could I progress where I cannot see any role model. In AI, I must say, even now in Facebook, there are so many women role models, and I have no doubt that if I wanted to, stay in the field, I could do it. And I think that's important for our, kids, for girls to have role models, to have teachers, female teachers that teach AI. And the other thing is that I feel the term artificial intelligence might sound a bit intimidating. It's good to maybe for us to define fun, relatable, and simple projects for kids to get involved, for girls to get involved, for them to grow their confidence, and also in their interest.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, thanks, Mazie. I would like to move on to our next panelist, Federica. Federica is a professor of software engineering at UCL's computer science department, where she has established and led the software optimization, learning, and analytics research group. She carries out cutting-edge research on machine learning for software engineering and software engineering for machine learning, with a focus on automatic software testing, repair and optimization, software fairness, and predictive analytics for project management and quality assurance. Her group obtained several international awards and generous funding for their research, and they have also collaborated with software companies, including Facebook and Google. So, Federica, this sounds very impressive, or is very impressive, and you've had so far a very successful career in academia. I was wondering, like, on your path, did you experience something like systemic sexism in academia? For example, did you find that you had to fight a bit harder than your male colleagues to get to the place where you are, for example, when it comes to salary negotiations, career progress, and so on and so forth?
I think you're on mute, Federica.
Yes. So, hi everyone. Well, as you said, I've been at a quick career path towards the professorship, and fortunately, there have been no major bumps along the path, as the majority of people I've encountered at UCL have been supportive and inclusive. However, I have to admit that there have been moments where I felt overwhelmed in a male-dominated environment. You know, there are jokes, there are people are not look at you so in a friendly way because you're women or because you're young. And how have I overcome these moments? Something that's really helped me has been the presence of senior women, not only at UCL but also in the software engineering community, who have helped me to find my voice. Basically, they taught me not to wait to be discovered, but to be visible, and don't be afraid to stand up for myself. So, for example, in terms of promotion, salary negotiation, these were things I probably been naive about and never knew that I had to negotiate or do something like that. And only speaking with other more senior colleagues have taught me how to do that. So I believe having good mentors and good networking with your colleague in your environment is key to go forward. I've been always determined to reach my goal and my dream, and this has helped a lot. But the confidence to reach it is something different, and you can get it from the people you have around. In case you lack a bit of it, as you were pointing out before, Marc.
Thank you. It's very good to hear that UCL is a supportive environment. So I was wondering, I mean, you said something earlier about, you know, there are the jokes, there are the looks. So what do you think are the things that we can do to kind of like make this disappear? Yeah, I mean, we're talking here about, okay, sexism in one way. There's ageism that comes into this as well. So would like to maybe
as we are all aware, there are a lot of initiatives that university policymakers are doing towards this end. For example, UCL Computer Science is part of the Athena Swan, and they work towards embodying key principles to encourage fair and empowering workplace and so on. But I think that there's something that personally we can do to change things. Because what we live day to day is our work environment, right? And for example, when I hire people at the very first meeting, part of the discussion is about having an inclusive and safe environment for everyone. Some people just don't have the knowledge or the education about diversity. So little hints towards this direction to the people we mentor and supervise could make a big difference, in my opinion. So something we can all do is commit to make this change happen, and day by day, and one woman at a time. So when we get to work or to see other people, we need to be there and be supportive, and also maybe intervene. I mean, if you're in an environment where there are jokes and you see that other people are affected by that, you can talk to those people and also to the other one that made the joke, just to make them understand that that's not fair. And this is something the policymaker can do, but we can do.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Federica. So I wanted to also welcome Yasemin on the panel. So we saw Yasemin earlier in the keynote, and you know, she already told us that where she has been throughout her career. And what I find really interesting throughout your career, Yasemin, is, you know, you did a PhD, and then you started with a postdoc, or you did a postdoc as well, and then you started to work for a robotics company, for ABB in that case, then you move to a startup, now you're moving back to academia. So I think it's a very, very interesting journey. And so what I would like to know a little bit from you is like, what kind of tactics do you have to navigate your career?
Thanks. First of all, I think I first wanted to discover for myself what kind of environment is really best for me. Therefore, I wanted to sample, in a way, different places and see with my own eyes how I feel, how I contribute. Is this a good fit for me? And for this, also, I have to add that I was always interested in real-world applications. How can I solve a real problem? Even if we work on fundamental research, I think it's a good idea to have some real-world problems in mind when we are thinking about what to work on. And this helped me to develop some skills that allows me to be more mobile in terms of moving between different environments. Since my PhD, I was always interested in making things work. So sit down with a real robot, implement things and see if it works or not, and do it in a loop so that I learn what works, what doesn't work, what are the other things that I have to think about. I was quite interested in coding, implementation, also using other people's packages. When somebody, for instance, develops a software piece that does perception, that does object pose estimation or recognition, I was trying to use that. That also helped me to understand how to collaborate with different people and learn from their experiences, even if I don't know each and every detail of their work, because that's kind of what you need in a company environment. Work with others and improve things as a whole team. So I think that's basically more or less what I try to pay attention to. I still want to be able to, keep my options open in a way that I'd like to be able to visit different places when I can to reach my goals of making things work in real environments. So I would hope to go and visit companies or different research groups and get to know what they're working on and, build more collaborations.
Cool. So you mentioned that you want to keep your options open, you want to visit different places. So you also have already visited a lot of places. You lived in many different countries, right? So you've been, you're originally from Turkey. So I think
Right.
you did your first degree there. Then you went to Sweden. You've lived in the UK. You lived in the US.
Also in Denmark, actually. I was an exchange student in Denmark during my undergrad. Yeah.
Oh, so that's okay. That's pretty cool. So you've seen a lot of countries. So what I was wondering is like, if you so with respect to being a woman in research, how do these different countries differ in terms of environment and support for women? So where is it? Is it easy? What makes it easy or easier? What are the big challenges depending on the countries you experienced?
I think all places I've been were very supportive and nice, and the main reason why I wanted to go abroad was because I was quite an introvert student, and I wasn't super social. I was just almost a very shy student, and all. I just wanted to push my boundaries and put myself in a situation where I have to be more social and more interactive. So I think a very good way to do this is definitely go abroad, because you won't have your family, you will be out of your comfort zone, and you will have to do things on your own. So this was very good, regardless of if you're a girl or man, doesn't matter. This is a very good exercise for you. But I mean, I think, as I mentioned, most places, environments I've been to were quite supportive, and I haven't felt discriminated or this also, I think, depends. Like maybe it's because I project that somehow around myself. I try to see people as people, not just man or woman, or depending on the differences. Maybe that's what I project, and that's what I get back. I can't quite know what's the real reason, but I haven't much experienced any kind of major differences in places I've been to.
Cool. Thank you very much, Yasemin. Now I also want to welcome our last panelist, Feryal. So Feryal, we also know from the keynote earlier, and we learned a little bit about her meandering trajectory. I think it's a typical PhD trajectory, I would say, through her career. And so Feryal is now at DeepMind, and what she also mentioned earlier is that she is on the board of an organization called Women in Machine Learning. So Feryal, I was wondering whether you could tell us a little bit more about what Women in Machine Learning, or WIML, is. What's the mission of WIML?
Yeah, sure. So I got to know about WIML when I was doing my PhD, and I was going to conferences, and WIML has this NeurIPS workshop. It's a workshop before the start of NeurIPS, and gets many women together to present their work to each other and others from the NeurIPS community, and basically create a support system. So when they sort of attend the main conference, they feel confident and they have people to sort of meet and connect them to the others. And I really liked that. And I had a lot of friends that I kept through my career, and I met them at WIML. And sort of the mission is to exactly provide a community for women to come together and find each other, and also highlights achievement of women by profiling them, and sort of create a directory of women in the field. So we can show that, although the ratio is quite bad still in the field, but there's a lot of amazing women that exist, and they're doing really cool research. And when conferences want to organize workshops or keynotes, they should sort of look into this list and find these amazing women to come and give talks. And yeah, so the whole aim is to improve basically the field and make it more inclusive. And so how did WIML help you when you were a junior researcher? I mean, you're on the board now, but how does WIML do something for like an early career researcher? Yeah, so when I was, let's say, first year of PhD, I was working on something from my master's or whatever. I managed to send it at WIML and be able to present that work. And I think that's very important, because you learn, you get reviews back, you sort of get to talk and present your work very early on. And I think that's great. And it's just an abstract that you need to submit. So, there is not too much requirement, and you can have work in progress presented, but it's still at NeurIPS, so you get exposure to all these amazing scientists and very senior, maybe successful scientists that are attending NeurIPS. So they come to your poster, and you get to talk to them, you get to sort of discuss your interests, and maybe even find internships or positions or collaborators there. And I think that was really good for me. And also I met other sort of women doing PhDs, and we could share our stories and understand that many things that maybe we feel like, we're alone facing those, it's actually shared, and it helped me have much more confidence. And yeah, and I think for me, it was amazing. Also, WIML provides funding. So, when you present your work at WIML, you can apply for funding, and we try to give funding to everyone who comes to present, and that allows that allows me or others to attend NeurIPS, while we didn't have the funding to attend otherwise. And I think that's really good to go to these conferences early on and understand what you like, what create collaborations and stuff. So you get a network of other exciting people in the field, or women in the field. You discover you are not alone, and you get funding for it. So this is great. If somebody wants to get in touch with WIML, what's the best way?
We are on social media, so both on Twitter, Facebook, and also we have the website womenworkshop.org. And yeah, and in most of the AI conferences now, we have some social event or some bigger maybe event at Murex, and yeah, and you can submit your work and also follow us on Twitter and social media to get all the latest news.
Cool. Thank you very much. I would like to open up now to everyone else to ask questions. So thanks. First, thank you all of the panelists for patiently asking or answering my questions. And I need to scroll a little bit through the chat. I hope there are some questions. Okay, so here's a question from Constanza. Constanza, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question directly?
Yeah, sure. I don't have great internet, so I can try to share the video, but it may cut. So yeah, my question is about the reference letters needed to apply for PhD. Like, do you have any recommendations on who should I prefer to ask the letter? Like people, like I'm currently working in the industry. Is it okay to ask for a reference letter of a colleague, or is it better to just have a reference letter from academia and just ask former professors?
Do you want me to take this one as I look at all the applications for UCL, or at least for our CDT? So anyone in academia can write you a letter. It's about quality, but it's also about reviewing your research capabilities. The only advice I ever give applicants when they say, who should I ask, is not your mum. That has happened.
If I can add on top of it, if you could ask to people that really know you, because they can support you and highlight your strengths, and that will make a difference. And people you trust, they will submit the letter as well in time, and because it may happen that they won't. So people you trust and people that know you, I think is ideal, regardless of their background. Hope this answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Constanza. There's also a question from Kate. Kate, if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question directly, all yours.
Thanks, Mark. I was just wondering, so I came in from industry, from cybersecurity, and so coming into a bit more ML, it was a bit overwhelming, to say the least. So I was just wondering if those of you who have done similar things coming in from another field, like Feryal, I think you mentioned computational neuroscience, right? What were some tricks and tips that you might have for someone like me who's coming in from something rather different?
Yeah, I can take that. So I think that's a very good question. I did a lot of self-studying. Like there is so much opportunity to study by yourself for machine learning per se, because there is a lot of resources online. And I think it might feel a bit scary, but once you sort of go through the materials, it's very exciting. And also there's a lot of people on Twitter, on social media, or even in your networks. Many people might be thinking like you and wanting to sort of get into AI. And I had friends who were doing the same, and I was like trying to talk to them about what I'm discovering and what I'm working on. And I think that really helped me. I did a lot of just don't be scared. One thing, I saw a lot of questions around this as well in the chat, that people who are switching from different fields. I mean, I was lucky I did maybe computer science, but for people like who did medicine, let's say, it might be very scary. I will say that I think the future of AI is going to be determined by you, and you will have the most impact because, we have a lot of tools now. AI has created a lot of amazing algorithms, a lot of sort of theoretical foundations that are very strong. But if we want to make impact, we want to apply this to sort of different problems that our society is facing, right? Maybe improve science, maybe make new discoveries, maybe, I don't know, solve the COVID situation. So I think actually coming to AI with different backgrounds is going to be very, very valuable for the community, and it's very important, and you're going to have the most impact in the future. So I really encourage you to not be scared, and you will have something that is very hard for us as AI researchers to gain, right? Your domain knowledge on the field that you've studied, and that's really hard to learn. Trust me, like many of us tried, but it's hard. So I really think be confident, be happy about what you've achieved so far, and be open to learn more and ask for help from the community. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, Feryal. There's also a question from Isabel, who is, so I'm going to read this out because Isabel said she is in a cafe and can't turn her mic on. So thank you for an amazing talk. I have a quick question. Have you gained any particular insights about gender bias in AI working in the field as a woman or as women? I think that may probably go to the entire panel. So maybe somebody has experience and wants to comment on this.
I could make some comments. Well, I don't know if by gender bias you mean like what we experience or like in algorithms. There are two different things. Gender bias is definitely present in some, in our data and in our algorithms, and that's an active area of research that we are trying to address. In terms of bias that we experience, I think, so I have been in industry and in academia. I feel that in industry, there are more policies for, like respectful work environment and for many things. So I have generally experienced less negative experience. When I was at university, as I think Federica was mentioning earlier, it was less things about maybe jokes or assumptions, because it's just there are less policies at university. And having gone from financial industry to university, I was a little bit shocked by some comments that even big professors were making. But in general, I think that people are very conscious about it, especially in industry, and I think things are getting better. One thing that I have noticed generally is that women and men have different perception of their abilities. Men are, if you need 10 skills for your job, and if men have 7, they will be very confident to say they have all the skills. Whereas we women, even if we have all of it, we are still not very confident. So I think for me personally, that has been my biggest challenge, to kind of, keep my confidence and remember that, it's not always everything in the appearance.
Anyone else wants to chip in?
I just want to say that I fully agree with what Marc is.
Yeah, me too. I think she's give a very good picture of common experience, as you can see. Go ahead, Rula.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to say that, I think gender bias exists in quite a lot of industries. So, for example, I used to work in a consultancy, and it was pretty unpleasant actually, because those jokes that Marzia referred to were being made there and then, and I actually felt that even though it was, like studying machine learning, there were a lot more males than females on the course, and yeah, they have very different perceptions of their skills than women do. I felt it was less claustrophobic than consultancy, less problematic for me. I could just get on with, maybe it's an age thing, I don't know, younger people's attitudes have changed perhaps, but I found it a lot less biased, so to speak, than some industries.
Okay, thank you. Rihi, you have a question. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question? So I can't ask the question because I don't actually know how you mean the question. So it's a bit okay. We're going to postpone that then. Okay, before we conclude, I would like to ask maybe every panelist one final question, and I would like to kind of like play maybe the game of a time machine, and I would ask you, you know, transport yourself back to the age of when you were, let's say, 10. What would you tell yourself at the age of 10 if you could have some sort of like way to communicate with your 10-year-old version? What are the things that you think are important in life that you should pay attention to? And I'm just going to go through now the order on my screen because otherwise I'm going to lose track. I would like to start with Yasemin.
Oh, that's a hard question. I think I would still encourage myself to face my fears even more. I think there were a couple of opportunities where I didn't dare to take. I would just urge myself and, you know, push myself so that I face the monsters and just go after what I wanted. Yeah, just say things that would make me even more confident and courageous. Yes.
Thank you. Feryal.
I fully agree with Yasemin. I would tell myself, don't change a thing because I'm very happy now. I'm kidding. But I love what I'm doing now. So I definitely say that don't think too much about things. Like I really think 100 times about like trying to be perfectionist about everything and just submit that paper. Don't spend so much time thinking that it's not good enough. Just send it, you get reviews back, and that's okay. You can fail. And I think these things I was really not doing these things. I was very trying to plan everything and trying to think too much about whether something I'm doing is good enough. So yeah, question yourself less. That's what I would say, and be more confident.
I think that's a very good suggestion. You know, not to be overly perfectionist, and that you are allowed to fail to some degree. So I think that's a very good point. Thank you, Feryal. Federica, what would you tell your 10-year-old version?
Be more confident earlier, probably in your path, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, because there won't be always someone else that will look after your career. I've been lucky enough till some point to have a good mentor, caring about career development. But when you are when you have to stand up on your own feet and you feel the earth shaking, then it's the moment when you realize you need to be confident, you can make it, and you just have to stand up and go ahead.
Cool, thank you. Marzieh.
Actually, it's a very difficult question. I feel like when I was 10 years old, I didn't know much about the world. So actually, I was very confident. But, you know, I didn't know what I didn't know. Maybe if I wanted to send a message to myself in the past, it would be during my PhD. when you have so many failures. But when you finish it, you realize that's the thing, that doing PhD or research is actually failure. You fail many times more than you succeed, and you learn more. Actually, if you succeed the first time, you learn less than if you fail several times and then succeed.
Learning from failure, great point. Yes, wonderful. Rula, what do you want to tell your 10-year-old version who was already like disassembling computers?
Yeah, yeah, just exactly what they said. I think just to be more confident and to not care about making mistakes, and just go for it. Probably not at 10, because I think, like Marzia said, at 10 I just had no idea what was going on in the world. So yeah, that's it really. Oh, and to challenge yourself, like not to be scared of challenges, because I think sometimes you're scared of the unknown. Not to be scared of the unknown, just take the first step.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I think we're very well in time. So I want to thank all the panelists for a great discussion. I want to also thank everyone else here. Thank you for asking questions. I know there's a lot of, yeah.
Marc, I have a question, sorry.
Yes, please go.
So I just posted a question, if you could, yeah, so Trupti decides. My question is, when you're writing the research proposal paper, so what are the most important aspects reviewers look for? And like, I'm just thinking, is this really like thoroughly evaluated, and is the key selection criteria to evaluate whether there's a match with whatever the unit's objectives are? So can somebody guide around, how do we go about writing a meaningful research proposal paper which can express what we want to propose, as well as, how does it get evaluated? Like, just more context on that.
Okay, so how do we go about writing a good research paper? I think the very short version of Trupti's question. So Trupti also posted something in the chat. Anyone wants to comment on that?
I can take that. I couldn't hear the full question because the audio wasn't great, but
yeah.
If it's about how to write.
Yeah, so I can read it from the chat.
Yeah,
so when are we writing the when we are writing the research proposal paper, what are the most important aspects reviewers are looking for? Are they really thoroughly evaluated, or key selection criteria to evaluate the fitness with the unit's objectives?
Well, at least in my field, like software engineering and artificial intelligence for software engineering, novelty is key, but also communicating properly your message is key. Reviewers look for clarity. Right? If you make their job hard, they can understand the main takeaway message. Probably the paper could be rejected, not because it's not good, but because the message has not been conveyed. And of course, abstract, introduction, conclusion are parts that give the first impression to a reviewer and are need to be very well polished, but also solid methodology and rigor through the sections or the experiments you carry out are points that are evaluated seriously during the process, the review process.
Thanks, Federica. Anyone else wants to comment on writing papers? What are the things that we have to pay attention to? Maybe I can also chip in a few words here. So I agree with Federica. So novelty is key. So you need to have something that is a contribution to science. But then there's also a lot about communication. So how do you communicate this kind of contribution? So you need to choose a language that that works with the audience, and your first audience are the reviewers. So make sure your paper is reasonably easy to understand. Make sure you have either proofs or some empirical evidence that supports your claims. Make sure you have baselines somewhere. If you do the empirical studies, then what are the baselines? What I'm personally looking for in a paper is also that I learned something. So always, I try to put some information in papers that explain why something works or why something does not work. Because otherwise you read these papers, they say, oh, I propose method X, it works better. Empirical results done. It's like, I don't know why. So what are the things that make it work? What are the crucial ingredients? Because that is the thing that I take away from the paper. Because otherwise, I mean, by default, I don't read the experimental section in the first go because, I mean, what's in there? It works, or it works better than everything else. But I want to understand why things work. And that is kind of like the communication that I'm personally looking for. Okay. So there was also
Thank you.
Question. Sorry, Peter's saying question was about the research proposal. Okay.
I believe similar advice applies, because your research proposal should investigate something novel. You should be able to convey the message. Why do we care? Why do we have to research this field, and how it builds on the existing field? So research proposal is a research paper without the results, without the empirical evidence in the end, right? Hope this can help.
I think there's also another question maybe we should answer about the coding skills and sort of, yeah, I would love to answer that. I think there was something that employers seek maybe people with different coding skills, or I just want to say that coding is very important in machine learning, but don't do it maybe independently. It's good to sort of try to implement algorithms that you see in papers, and that way you improve your coding skills and also understanding of the field. So this can be very combined. And also, for instance, the coding language I use is Python, and I think that gets me really far, and I don't need to know many different languages, so don't be worried about that. And yeah, that's mainly it. I think I just wanted to say that don't be scared, and coding is fun, and also you can learn it by doing research at the same time. So.
I wanted to briefly come back to the question on research proposal. I have I'm posting a link in the chat, which is a link to a template for writing a research proposal for a PhD application. It's just like a skeleton of a structure, but maybe you find that helpful. That's kind of like what I give students who get in touch with me in terms of like how to write a research proposal. And it's not perfect, but it's at least it's a skeleton. You can maybe work from there. Hopefully, it may be helpful. Yeah. So there are a lot of other questions, but I thought these questions are probably also very well discussed in the breakout rooms, because then it goes into CDTs. You know, how do I apply to the CDT? What are you looking for, and so on. So that's the reason why I skipped a lot of these, a lot of the questions in the chat. So that's the reason why I wanted to conclude the panel, and then we can continue the discussion in the breakout rooms. So thank you again, Yasemin, Rula, Mazi, Feryal, and Federica for a great chat. And it was a pleasure hosting this panel. And maybe I'll see some of you in the breakout rooms later. Thank you very much.